right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Papa Spice, bringing you a very special episode, the very first of Not So Average Golf Talk. Don't really know what this thing is going to be long term, but I wanted to hop on because, like many others, I have a big passion for the PGA Tour, and there was a huge announcement that came out today that I think is going to really impact and shape the game in a way that is going to change professional golf for years to come. And so I think it would be worthwhile. I thought it would be worthwhile to hop on here to try to explain and dumb it down a little bit. It can be overwhelming and easy to get lost in all the jargon. And if you haven't been following a lot of the, live versus PGA stuff over the last, year and a half to 2 years now, a lot of this can just be very new and just how do I understand all of this and where is this all coming from, right? So wanted to hop on and let's try to break it down, today's announcement. So today, again, I'm going to be going off of some of the official PR reading here from the PGA Tour. We're also tuned in for a video here, but so it was announced today that the PGA Tour for the 2024 season next year is going to be featuring eight designated events that will have a field of 70 to 78 players competing for elevated purses and FedEx Cup points. All right, so let me first break it down. What is a designated event, and then get into why this is going to be a big deal. So, much to the response of the creation of the Live Tour over the last year and a half, the PGA Tour responded with a new type of season structure for 2023, announcing that they were going to have 12 designated events for 2023. What a designated event really means is you have more of the top players in the world competing against one another for more money. That's basically it in a nutshell. This was created in hopes that the competition would be elevated for these, again, what are they? They're also calling them elevated events, that the competition would be heightened, and it gives the players more incentive to participate more often against one another, especially those that are in the top 50, more importantly for those in the top 10, because at the end of the day, when it comes to the TV product of the PGA Tour, that is what we want to see, right? We want to see the top players competing against one another more often, and especially at events that we truly love to watch. There's already been some fantastic tournaments this year that have already been designated events that I feel personally have been a success for the PGA Tour. One being with the Waste Management Phoenix Open earlier this year, and then most recently at the Genesis Invitational as well. So those were both designated events for this year that I feel the competition was certainly there, and the TV product overall was fantastic. So if you're wondering what a designated event is, again, it's really just meant to be it's more of the top players in the world competing against one another for more money, right? So in theory, everything and everyone should win. Now, what's different about this announcement and these designated events specifically for next year are two main things. One, they are not full field events, meaning this is a smaller group of golfers competing against one another for, again, elevated purses and more FedEx Cup points. And to much of the controversy, these are going to not have a 36-hole cut. Now, for those of you that have been tuned in to the Live, conversation, this was a big marketing ploy, and they were trying to make it as a huge selling point to join Live, was that there were going to be no cuts, right? For some players that, for over the duration of their career that have not been able to make cuts, it can become very frustrating over time to not get in the money. So again, those that are very new to golf, or especially professional golf, if you do not make a certain score that is good enough in the top 50% of the field for that specific event, you do not play the weekend. i.e., you do not win money. You cannot win money. So it's very important to come out on Thursday and Friday for those first 2 days to do the best that you can, because if you're able to play the weekend, you're guaranteed some cash. So again, it makes it worth your while to have then competed for the weekend. Now, this is different. Again, like I said, this is for unique coming from the PGA Tour, because this was a point that they were kind of pushing it back against when it came to live, right? That it reduces and diminishes the point of sport and competition, XYZ. However, the designated events, I think, are different in some ways in the intent. Now, on paper, they may seem very much a replica of what Live has done, and is trying to promote as their own unique product. But I think overall, which I'll get into in just a little bit here, I feel that these designated events from the PGA Tour provide additional benefits for the other full field events that go on throughout the course of the year. So what I'm going to do, I just want to go through each of the points of like what these designated events really mean. How do they fit into the overall schedule of the PGA Tour for next year? Who can qualify, and some of the specifics, and then I can kind of go into some of my 2 cents here. But like I said, these are going to be fields of 70 to 78 players. There's going to be no 36-hole cut. These are an addition. Okay, so these are not in substitute of any of the majors. These are an addition to the majors, the Players Tournament, and the 3 FedEx Cup Playoff Series events that we get each year. At this point in time, again, because this was just released a couple of hours ago this morning, there are still more details to come as to which events next year are going to be these designated events. So we don't have any information on that quite yet. But as more details unfold and come out, I'll make sure to report that back to you guys. Like I mentioned, 2023 already has the 12 designated events. So next year we're going to have more of these, but these are, again, slightly different. Here is the eligibility system. Now, this is where I feel it's the new designated events for 2024 are more unique than, some will say, again, like, oh, this is just another Live product. I'll give my take on that in just a bit. But here are the actual specifics as to how players, I wish we could be part of that if we were good enough, of how players are going to be able to actually qualify for these events. So I'm going to read these off again. This is the official announcement from the PGA Tour this morning. So eligibility, the top 50 players from the prior year FedEx Cup standings through the FedEx Cup playoffs. The top 10 players not otherwise eligible from the current year FedEx Cup standings. Again, this is using the previous year's FedEx Cup standings through the conclusion of the fall events for any other early season events. The top 5 players not otherwise eligible, earning the most FedEx Cup points through each collection of standard events. This means the events between each designated event, which I think this is a very, very huge, unique selling point to this announcement, which again, I'll get into. The current year tournament winners, not otherwise eligible of full FedEx Cup points events prior to the designated event. PGA Tour members among the top 30 in the official World Golf ranking. And finally, 4 sponsor exemptions restricted to PGA Tour members. Before I get into how I feel about this, I want to play Rory's reaction to the announcement. So give me a second while I cue this up. I think what Rory really has to say, and again, Rory has been very much the focal voice of the PGA Tour, I would say, in addition to Tiger over these last 2 years, now more than ever in his career, as a true advocate of the PGA Tour and really taking a stance and showing and demonstrating initiative to work with the PGA Tour to elevate the structure of the season for not only the players, but how does the structure also elevate the product for the viewers and the fans, right? That's the most important piece in all of this, which Rory touches on. So I want to play his reaction and then I'll comment on it.
So I love it, right? Obviously, I've been a part of it and been in a ton of discussions. I think it makes the tour more competitive. You know, I think we were going that way anyway. You know, you think of the playoffs used to be 125, 70, 30, and obviously this year they've won 70, 50, 30. So I think, like, I'm all about rewarding good play. I'm certainly not about, I want to give everyone a fair shake at this, which I think this structure has done. There's ways to play into it. There's, you know, it's trying to get the top guys versus the hot guys, right? I think that creates a really compelling product, but a way that you don't have to wait an entire year for your good play to then get the opportunity. That opportunity presents itself straight away. You play well for 2 or 3 weeks, you're in a designated event. You know, then if you keep playing well, you stay in them. You know, like, so, you know, for example, someone like a Chris Kirk last week that wins Honda, you know, he said, you know, winning is really important on this tour, and good play and rewarding that. And at the end of the day, I think with, you know, all these designated events and this event schedule, you know, at the end of the day, we're selling a product to people, and the more clarity they have on that product and knowing what they're buying is really important. It's really important for the tour, and I think this solves for that.
All right. Let me turn my mic down here. So I think what Rory had to say is spot on and really, really important to call out as part of this announcement and what the PGA's intent is with this restructure. And that is to elevate the product for the fans, for the viewers, for us, right? I think we can all agree that the current PGA product is very much a lackluster viewing experience compared to the other sports that we consume day over day, week over week, right? You look at what the NFL has done, the NBA, and other sports that have really taken great strides in elevating what it means to watch their games and their products. They've done a lot. They've invested a lot. And I think the PGA Tour is, you know, better late than never, now responding to the need to do the same. I don't have the figures in front of me. Maybe I'll bring that, you know, be better prepared next week or next time I do this. But overall, the viewership for the PGA Tour has been declining for for many years now. And if you're very close to the PGA Tour and you watch it, you can probably take a stab at who their primary viewership is, right? It is the likes of, you know, our aunts and uncles and grandparents, right? 55 and older, typically, you know, white men, retired, right? Like that is the clientele. And so they're trying to figure out ways and create different seasons and schedules that are more enticing for fans, especially younger fans, to get involved earlier and more often with the PGA Tour. So one of the points that Rory called out is, and what I feel makes these designated events very interesting, and I think a great selling point for the PGA Tour next year, actually relates to the full field events of how they complement each other so well, and his point about the top players versus the hot players. Okay, so I want to break down the first one, the full field events. So in my opinion, the full field events become much more important and even more competitive with these designated events being instilled in the season next year. The reason for that is, again, we don't know all the specifics yet, but there are going to be components of the full field events that allow players to gain eligibility into these higher purse, higher competition designated events, right? So to his point about Chris Kirk, who just won the Honda, right? That's a guy that, again, has been absent from the tour for many, many years, comes back in huge fashion and wins his first PGA Tour event back full time, right? That's a guy that is going to benefit significantly from these new designated events next year, where he can immediately take a springboard himself into a higher purse, higher competitive event that is going to, again, just add more to the product, into the storyline of, hey, here's a comeback story. If you know anything about Chris Kirk, again, mentioned in our average golf talk episode, has battled alcohol addiction, depression for numerous years, took a step away from the game, comes back, wins, right? Everyone loves a comeback story, right? That in itself is going to entice at least me and hopefully others to tune in to the next week or next 2 weeks when he then goes to a designated event where he is competing against the top 10 in the world for a purse that's 2 times of what he already just won potentially at the Honda, right? Like incredible product that hopefully is going to entice folks to want to view more often as it relates to the PGA Tour. And I want to emphasize this is both for season long and intervals, which plays into the point about the top players versus the hot players. So again, you're going to have the ability, I just say us, like, yeah, we're going to step on there. It provides players the opportunity all season long, right, to gain access to these events. And not only that, it also allows those that get on hot streaks or these, what Roy calls them, these intervals in between these designated events to be rewarded for good play. I think of a guy like Max Homa, who is now becoming, fastly a household name. But Max Homa 2 years ago, you would see, wins the Genesis Open during COVID, right? Goes on a streak of like 3 to 4 events following where he finishes in the top 5. I think he won another event, right? And then kind of cooled off towards the end of the season as it relates to the FedEx Cup, right? Had these designated events been part of that season, have been created already for him, that would have been an incredible guy to get involved with these designated events playing against the top 10 in the world, right? Here's a guy that's just hot as could be. He's hitting all the right cylinders. He's just on cruise control. He's dominating. He's contending each and every week. And then you put him up against a guy like Jon Rahm that may have cooled off or is coming back strong on the tour, whatever it might be, whatever the narrative might be. Like that is a very compelling story. And again, product that the viewers are going to want to tune into, hopefully. Right. And this is where you have those consistent top end players, Rory, Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, all of those guys then competing against the guys that are trying to just break into the top 50, right? That are just maybe sitting on the skirt of it, that are just grinding each and every week, wanting and just doing everything they possibly can to have another shot, right? And contend again, even if it's just to make the cut. So I think these designated events provide a fantastic avenue to see golf, not just as we know it today, but I think in a different light that is going to elevate the competition. It's going to elevate how guys go about strategically, planning their schedule for next year of where they play and why they play there, right? We always want these guys to be playing each and every week, but it's a long, grueling season. Some guys sit it out more than others. Some guys just play the majors, whatever it might be. But I think this is going to incentivize them even more than just the larger purses that we're seeing for the 2023 season. This is going to provide them a whole nother way to really make a name for themselves out on the tour. So in my personal opinion, while yes, the person itself, you're just looking at this from a monetary standpoint, is this similar to Live in that regard? Sure. And has Lived maybe helped the PGA Tour along in terms of rewarding these players, even more money? Sure. That's fine. I'll let you have that. Do I think it's the same product? Absolutely not. This has to deal with, again, being ranked in the world and competing against the best, which Live is not. You've got half scrubs, half guys that just want to make a crap ton of money and chill, which, like, hey, if that's what you want to do, fine by me. I go get it. But it is not, that product is not it does not showcase the best in the world. While some of those guys used to be, right? I guess according to the world golf rankings, yes, they used to be. They are no longer, because it's just they're not playing against that. So the product overall is just it's just not the same. And so I, for one, am a huge proponent to this. I think this is going to make the 2024 season even more unique. I think it's going to really allow us to learn more about specific players that are on the rise, or guys like Chris Kirk that are a comeback story. I think it's going to really provide more of that one-to-one experience and getting to know more players out on tour that we may not otherwise get exposed to if they don't win, right? So I, for one, I think this is going to be a huge win for the tour. I am super, super excited of how this complements the new structure for this year. I think it fits in perfectly for next year. And again, I think it allows not only the top players in the world to compete against each other more frequently, I think it's going to allow those that are on the come up, or those that get hot at certain times of the year, when they're playing their best golf, be rewarded for their effort and for their grind. I really believe that. And I think that at the end of the day is going to entice more people to want to watch it. I think it's going to entice those to take more interest in individual players. And overall, I think it's going to excite everyone about what the potential 2024 PGA Tour has to offer, and just the product overall. So I wanted to get on here and just chime in, because I, for one, I follow the PGA Tour pretty closely. I know that's not our MO here, but I think it is worth talking about a little bit here and there, and sprinkled throughout. So again, would love everyone's comments. Would love to know what you think about the announcement. If you have any questions, leave us a comment. I will make sure to try to get it addressed as best I can. Again, just a novice golfer who likes to read on this stuff, so I'm only going according to what is already out there. I don't have any inside sources on the ground, unfortunately, but I will do everything I can if you do have questions to get those answered. But again, I want to open this up for discussion. Let me know what you think. If you think this is a terrible idea, would love to hear your side of the story as to why. And what potential more improvements could the PGA Tour make? I've got plenty of them. Maybe I'll do that for the next installment of this. But yeah, I just wanted to hop on here real quick and get folks updated, for those that, like staying in touch with the PGA Tour. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Again, leave comments, leave likes, shares, all that good fun stuff. Would love to hear from you guys about this. And we'll catch you guys next time. And as always, keep it spicy.